September 3rd, 1944. The Atlantic winds were cold that morning, sharp as steel against the faces of young German prisoners packed into the hold of a converted Liberty ship. They had surrendered across France only weeks earlier, most barely old enough to shave, still believing in a Reich that promised glory. But now, chained by circumstance and stripped of illusion, they sailed toward a land they knew only through propaganda America, the industrial giant across the ocean. Rumors spread among the POS like sparks in darkness. Some claimed the Americans worked their factories with enslaved prisoners. Others swore that in the US, machines replaced men entirely. Many believed they would be shot upon arrival. A few whispered that America's abundance was a myth created to weaken German morale. None of them were prepared for what they were about to witness. The ship creaked through heavy waters, as if time itself resisted the journey. A guard, an American from Ohio with soft eyes and a wedding ring polished from nervous thumb rubs, leaned against the rail and watched Europe fade behind them. He did not hate the men below deck. He had fought them. He had seen friends burn inside tanks, heard bones crack under artillery fire. Yet he wondered how many of these captured boys had truly chosen this war. At night, he listened to them sing broken songs of home. Some still cried for mothers they left in bombed streets. He thought war twisted lives on both ends of a rifle barrel. As dawn broke days later and the Statue of Liberty appeared through mist like a silent witness of fate, the German prisoners pressed against the portholes, stunned. New York's skyline rose like a forest of steel. Smoke billowed from chimneys, not from destruction, but creation. Miles of cranes, docks, and warehouses stretched further than the eye could travel. It was a machine in motion, a civilization pulsing with energy and purpose. One prisoner later said that in that moment he realized Germany could not win. The city itself felt like a weapon, forged from industry, fed by millions. Working night and day, as if war were only one of its tasks, they disembarked under watchful rifles. But instead of brutality, they found order lines. Registration desks, medical inspections. Doctors checked teeth, vaccinated arms, recorded names with efficient pencil strokes. They expected contempt, yet many Americans greeted them with weary neutrality rather than hatred. A nurse offered water to a trembling 19-year-old who expected the cup to be poisoned. Instead, it tasted of kindness he couldn't comprehend. Nothing in Nazi propaganda prepared them for this. The US was supposed to be chaotic, corrupt, collapsing under its own decadence. But here, even prisoners were processed with a system that felt almost humane. Trains carried them inland, metal wheels screaming across rails that stretched like arteries through an endless heartland. From the window, they saw fertile fields, towns untouched by bombs, rivers powering turbines, factories exhaling steam into pale skies. Warehouses filled with grain stood beside rows of tractors that gleamed in sunlight. It was a picture of prosperity. No ration lines, no hunger recoiling in children's faces. America looked as though war barely scratched its surface. One German officer muttered under his breath, "We are fighting a nation that manufactures victory." Others silently agreed. Their destination was one of the hundreds of POW camps spread across the United States. From Texas cotton plains to snowy Wisconsin forests, over 400,000 German prisoners were scattered across the country, many never knowing the others existed. It was a quiet secret of the home front, hidden behind smiling war bond posters and Hollywood films that never showed barbed wire stretching across American soil. These camps were small worlds with watchtowers, barracks, workshops, and libraries. The prisoners expected brutality, but instead found routines built on labor contracts. They chopped wood, harvested crops, repaired roads, even worked in factories, paid in camp currency they could spend on cigarettes, chocolate, or postcards home. Yet beneath this civility lay a deeper strategy. Crafted in offices where intelligence officers spoke in low voices over encrypted telegrams, the United States understood something vital. A fed, respected prisoner was more likely to talk. Interrogation rooms looked nothing like Gestapo chambers. Instead of torture, there was warmth, cigarettes, conversation, Questions flowed gently about fuel shortages, troop morale, new weapons rumored near Berlin. Many POWs opened up without realizing it, lulled by comfort and curiosity. In a quiet camp near Fort Hunt, Virginia, known only as P.O. Box 1142, the real secrets unfolded. The facility never appeared on maps. Guards swore oaths of silence. Here, German scientists and U-boat officers were interrogated behind closed doors. Some were treated with surprising luxury wine at dinner, access to newspapers, chess sets, even radios. The goal was simple: bleed intelligence from their minds without force. And it worked. From this place came information that shaped submarine warfare, cracked codes, and revealed experimental weapons like the V-2 rockets that terrorized London. The captured men felt watched at all times. Microphones hid inside light fixtures. Translators listened through walls. Casual conversations in showers or gardens became intelligence gold. A careless brag about U-boat fuel capacities could save thousands of Allied lives. The prisoners sensed shadows, among them other Germans planted as informants, rewarded with privileges. Paranoia grew like mold in dark corners. Friendships fractured. Men suspected each other. Silent games of loyalty and survival played beneath the surface of daily life, away from these intelligence centers. Typical POW camps still held psychological tension. Some Nazis tried to enforce party discipline inside the barracks, punishing those who cooperated with Americans. There were secret courts, threats scrawled on scraps of paper, even murders disguised as suicide. A man could die simply for saying, America might not be the enemy he thought. In response, camp commanders sometimes separated hardline Nazis into remote compounds, trying to prevent ideologies from festering. But ideas are harder to imprison than bodies. Meanwhile, outside the fences, America's industrial heart thundered louder than war drums. Factories capable of producing one Liberty ship every 4 days worked around the clock. Steel mills roared like living beasts. Women in overalls riveted bombers under floodlights at midnight, hair tied in scarves, faces smeared with determination. Trains hauled tanks west, planes east, ammunition south. Assembly lines stretched longer than airfields. Ford produced more war materiel than entire nations. A German prisoner in Iowa once counted 132 tractors working a single field. In his village back home, one tractor was shared between farms. He wrote in his diary, smuggled past censors, "I have seen the engine of America. We cannot defeat this." The shock deepened when posts were taken to American supermarkets during supervised labor assignments. Shelves overflowed with meats, fruits, canned goods. Butter was plentiful. Chocolate wasn't rationed to crumbs. Two Germans who grew up on scarcity under Allied bombing, it felt like another world. Some stared in disbelief, wondering if it was staged for their eyes. It wasn't. America was producing so much food that it could feed civilians, soldiers abroad and prisoners with enough to spare. At night, the camps echoed with conflicted thoughts. Some prisoners feared what would happen when the war ended. Would they be returned to bombed ruins? 2 families buried under rubble? Others dreamed of staying, building new futures in the land that showed them mercy. Letters home felt like messages between planets. America is not, as they told us, many wrote carefully, hoping censors would let truth slip through. Yet even beyond industry and interrogation, another hidden layer operated quietly: psychological warfare departments crafting leaflets. Radio broadcasts and cultural exposure meant to weaken fascist belief. Propaganda wasn't screamed. It was whispered. Films showing American freedom, newspapers revealing German defeats, jazz music seeping through barracks from nearby towns, it all chipped away at the armor of ideology. A guard once played Duke Ellington outside a fence, and an entire row of prisoners stood listening, stunned. They had been taught jazz was degenerate. Instead, it sounded like liberty. But beneath these visible transformations, darker truths lingered in the shadows. Some posts were moved like chess pieces across the nation to support secret agricultural shortages, helping feed America and its allies without public acknowledgement. Others were transported to hidden research labs to consult on engineering problems under assumed identities. A rare few vanished into classified programs that would later feed into the race for rocket technology and atomic research. They became ghosts in American history men whose names disappeared from camp rosters, recorded only in redacted files tied with fading government twine. Still, for most German POS, the greatest shock was not a secret facility or interrogation trick. It was America itself, its scale, its power, its confidence. Every mile of railroad track, every humming factory, every field heavy with grain whispered the same message. Germany had challenged a giant it could not comprehend.